Welcome everyone. So I'm very excited to introduce DJ. I have known DJ for a few months, and he's attended his first presentation in English in New Jersey. So I'm very let me give me 1 second. I just need to mute some, so you guys can unmute when you have questions. So I'm very excited to introduce DJ. So since the time I listened to him in New Jersey, so I've been always interested in putting together a group. We actually have a local meetup group in the Malvern, Pennsylvania area, which DJ is also part of. But we haven't had any in-person meeting. But I always thought of launch something formally, informally, so that we will get going, just socialize some ideas about AI and how you can benefit. So I feel DJ's vast experience in both in the technology in general, but also particularly implementing AI in his corporate work, and his personal experience in tinkering AI agents and all that. So it'll be a great session. I think DJ has a wide interest in many other areas of business, investing, entrepreneurship, and all that, along with his corporate experience. So we will have a very good intro about AI's use cases, and most importantly, we will have a good Q&A session. So feel free to ask some questions that's not only useful for you, and probably very useful for the general public. All right, DJ, so the floor is all yours, and let's crank it up.
Okay, thanks, Muthu. First of all, thanks everyone for joining. I know it's Sunday evening. Probably this is time you want to enjoy time with your family and friends. Taking time to come and into this kind of a session is definitely feeling honored that you guys all came here, right? So let me introduce myself a little, and then from there, I'll also try to give what my work entails, and then what I'm going to discuss in terms of AI today is going to be mostly generic AI stuff. What is AI? Kind of demystifying what is inside the nuts and bolts of AI, right? For some of you, it might be already been you might have been aware of those things, but let me know right now how deep you want to go into any of those stuff, right? So my today's talk, at least the initial part of it, is geared towards people who are introduced to AI, want to learn much about it, and where to look for these additional information to read for it. So with that said, feel free to stop and ask any questions. But let me finish the intro, and then you can go into the deeper depth questions. And I am learning as much as you are, right? So AI is a very innovative field in the sense it's ever growing. It started growing, and you know that Grok 3 was released, and then within a week, sorry, 2.5 was released, and then 3 is released. Chat GPT 4 was like a couple of months ago. Now we are talking about 4.5, right? So the field is ever increasing, right? So there is a lot of things to learn and a lot of ideas that we would like to uh, unpack here, right? So that's the set of it, right? So a brief introduction about me. So currently I work for Amazon. So I work in Amazon and the Amazon ads area. So my role is pretty much a principal TPM. That means that I coordinate across multiple teams from a technical perspective and ensure that the products are developed, right? Let me go into just kind of unpack a little bit about AI, right? So AI, I think a lot of people maybe people had already been known about AI, but there's more interest and more things started happening after ChatGPT, right? So what is ChatGPT? Let's start with that, right? ChatGPT is a transformer model, right? It's a transformer in the sense there is data available already, right? So for example, google.com crawls through the web and collects all the information about all multiple web pages, and it stores in its data storage, right? Similarly, in the open source side, you have Common Crawl. So if you go to Common Crawl, they crawl the web similar to Google, and they allow that data to be available for anyone to use it. So think about ChatGPT, what it does is that it takes that knowledge, a body of knowledge, let's say just the websites. So let's say there are like trillions and trillions of web pages. Those information is already scanned, and you have the text of those things. What a transformer system like a ChatGPT does is like it will tokenize each of those words in that. And before that, just let's say that there's a language model, right? So before that, the chat GPT or any of the transformation needs to understand the basics of a language, right? So let's for now let's restrict ourselves to English right now. So English has some grammar, how the sentences are formed and everything. So these grammar models had been already been generated. So it has been for the past 50 years or so, these language models has been getting generated. So what it does is like, given a sentence, it will know the structure of the sentence. It will say which is a subject, which is a predicate, what is the action, which is verb, and all those things is already there. So that assuming that that has been built and it's been very advanced, right? So now you have this huge amount of text. Literally what it does is it splits it by words, and for each of the word, it will assign a number, right? So numeric value, and then it will create a self-learning metadata on top of it. So that's what has happened. When you talk about Chat GPT, you're talking about this trillions of data, which is scanned data. It will tokenize that, and then it will transform it. When it transform, you are transforming. You're creating something called first initially you're creating something called as a vector, which is assigning numbers to it, and based on that numbers you create relationship between those numbers, and these transformers will try to understand it. So when you say understand, what understanding means is that it will create relationship between those words in that particular context. So if I say like Muthu was speaking to Dinesh today morning, so it will know that Muthu and Dinesh are two people, and then morning is the scenario environment they were speaking. So at that particular point the mood will be zero, for example. So because it doesn't say whether we are happy talk conversation or a sad conversation or it's a heated conversation, right? So it will collect that. Let's say that, and after that they are laughing. So now that information that laughing has been given, they know that it's a very friendly cordial conversation. So on and so forth. What happens is this chat GPT and transform emotion, they'll read through the entirety of this web, all of this data, and then create multiple trees, right? So we know about two dimension and easily, and then we kind of like understand how three-dimension works, right? So think about these are like hundreds of dimensions, thousands of dimensions. So it will create multiple trees within their structure, and they index it within their database. So chat GPT, when you talk about parameters, that's what they're talking about, right? So the number of parameters, number of pages it has read, how many parameters it has created. What is the difference between ChatGPT 4 and 4.5 is its speed at which it can can process these parameters, and that is based upon how much it has already pre-processed. So if you heard about DeepSeek coming like a couple of weeks back, why it is very famous is because, and why it was fast is because they use the pre-trained model of ChatGPT or any other model, and they use it to process more additional data. So that's what is happening. So whenever we're talking about AI, we are talking about these transformers, or we are talking about the speed of the transformers, right? Like Elon released this Grok, and there is Perplexity, multiple. Like every day you'll see like new agents coming up, because the language model, the basic language model you have built, the pre-training model is built. Other people can start using it. So that's what is happening in ChatGPT. And then this information, right? Usually, whatever you browse from the internet is general information, right? Then there is a concept called as fine tuning. Let's say you are a lawyer and you want to ask a law related question. So ChatGPT may not have that information. So you create a separate module and a separate model that will browse through all your law related information, and I'll keep it in a separate database, right? And that specific knowledge base will be seeked. So when ChatGPT is conversing, let's say you're asking a specific law detail. Let's say if you want to refer to a case that happened in 1916 on a particular day, then it will go to this learning model, the specific data model, and get it. This is called as fine tuning, right? So you keep on fine tuning. So think of these things like, so law could be one thing, medical could be anything. So you create multiple LM models. So what ChatGPT does is it has the ability to kind of get all this information and kind of moderate it and give it to you. So that's what is happening in the chat GPT. So I mean, I'll show, I think it's not a very intuitive diagrams. Let me see if I can show it to you. Let me know if you guys can see it. So here it is the LLM model, right? So it is only the gigantic LLM training sets. These are like, common crawl or whatever, right? You get that information, you pre-train it, and you create an LLM, right? And then the specific knowledge base is what you get it from, for example, a medical lexicon or medical cases and law cases and all those things. So each of them would have their own specific knowledge. And you use it what is called as fine tuning, and then the LLM becomes a fine-tuned LLM, right? So the results are stored here. So next time somebody is asking a question, you will get it'll know that, okay, I probably need to use a generic LLM, or I get it from fine-tuned LLM. So ChatGPT would decide and kind of like consolidate and send it back to you. So it is similar to this one, right? So whenever people you say that people are using like RAG, retrieval augmented generation, that's what happens. Like ChatGPT comes in, it has a controller, right? It'll gets all the basic questions from here or from ChatGPT. But let's say it has to use a search functionality. It will search Bing, it will search Google, whatever is the search engine they are configured, it'll get this information and do it. So pretty much what ChatGPT is, that controller is doing is called as orchestration, right? So it orchestrates all these results, kind of like puts it in a form and brings it back. So that is what is inside ChatGPT when you talk about an example, right? And what is the difference between Grok and the ChatGPT is again this language model and the specific database models and the relevance of the data, right? So for example, I talked about Common Crawl. So Common Crawl is open source, meaning that scanned images is available in like petabytes of data, which is available to you. You can write your own LLM. And if you remember, Sam Altman famously said, like, if you had to write from scratch, it is going to cost you billions of dollars, because you're talking about trillions and trillions of parameters. For you to process and build this from scratch, it is going to cost you immense amount of money. It is going to cost you upwards of billions of dollars just to build the basic model. But ChatGPT being an open source, they had already done those information. So that's what you get it for free, right? So those basic models are there. But if you want to ask specific questions, right, and you want to say like, hey, I want to ensure that if I can like get comparables for a particular real estate property in a particular area, your chat GPT may not have it. It will scrape data from the websites. Probably again, it'll go to Bing or Google. It'll try to scrap data which is easily available, right? And how you can enhance this one is where you get like RAG, right? You can create your own model instead of chat GPT calling Bing search. Again, these are APIs available in ChatGPT. If you are a developer, you have access to these APIs and say like, no, instead of using Bing search, hey, I have an API. You make a call to that API and find out the comparables in that area within that comparable. So you have to write code for that. Like you use Python or like TensorFlow. There are multiple workflow systems and everything. You can write code for those things. So what I want to tell in this one is that if you want to start building an LLM model like a DeepSeek or something, it is going to be extremely difficult because of the cost involved. But can you build your own? So this could be even a spreadsheet, right? So for example, when you're analyzing a data for your real estate buying, for your investing purposes, you might maintain a spreadsheet, you might maintain a Word document. It doesn't matter, right? You can use that as an input and get that information and provide it to Chat GPT and get that information. So that is kind of introduction to ChatGPT. So before I move on, any questions?
Yeah, Dinesh, this is Ramki.
Hey, Ramki.
So when you talk about that, like a real estate agents, like why don't you connect with the Zillow or Redfin? It's kind of like the common domain where you can see all the database. Why do you need the separate database to retrieve the specific informations?
So Zillow and they don't give you process data, right? So Zillow will give you API data, but if you want to process it, you want to store it somewhere for you, right? Let's say you are building your own investment, if you're doing BRR or whatever, right? So let's not go into those terms, but let's say you want to analyze the real estate. You might have certain signals that you look for. When I say signals, you want to see that, hey, is it within that particular state? If it is like within 1 mile radius of this particular zip code, probably the price appreciation is pretty better, right? So you want to give some of those kind of conditions. Zillow and Ready API will give you like straight data. When you want to convert information, you want to store it and you want to do it. Whether you want to store it in a separate database or if you want to store it in a small cache and process and let it go, that's fine. But again, whatever you get from these APIs are very rudimentary data, right? You can use it directly, but I don't think Zillow or anything gives it. Let's take, for example, a stock trading application. If you want to write your stock trading application, right? So, and if you are doing technical analysis, you want to do 30-day moving average, you want to do 60-day moving average, you want to see like, what is your earnings ratio was, when is the next earnings statement is going to come, how was your previous four earning cycle was, right? What are the new business? So those are like, data you can get it. Like then in the future, you can go to the news, right? So that's where you can use things like Bing search and say that, hey, let's say we're going to Boeing. Let's say Boeing has a new order coming in, like 80 aircrafts that have been ordered from Australia, for example, and do you want to use that data? Right? Those kind of things you have to collect it and you have to create your own specialized LLM. So I'm talking about building your own LLM, right? For a commoner, you don't need that. But if you are a product company or building that, you need to see how you can incorporate those kind of signals to use it. Does it make sense?
Okay. So when you talk about that, stock prediction, other things, it's more into time series data, right? But this one, it's not really like yes, there will be also time series, but it's not that when compared to that stock predictions. So I don't know, like I'm not that real estate agents, but it depends. Like for example, if I want to show something like, hey, I need to see some close to 100,000 or 150,000 house, means the price range houses, then I can easily find out using the Silo or Redfin. Why don't I need to go? I need to start the real database. That's what my concern. But I understand, like if I want to go in detail, more detail, that is not able to accessible, like in the open database, then it's okay. Yeah, I got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So for example, if you're talking about real estate, right?
Yeah.
Zillow already has a AA component, they an API component, right? They give you some basic data, right? So in this particular case, you want to see that how is the price variation in a particular zip code for a 3-bedroom house, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably will not get that in a direct query. So you need to get that API, you need to get that data, you need to get like hundreds of data, then you need to store today's data, right? Your Zillow data will not give you, your Zillow API will give you the point in time data, right? So for example, if you want to store that data, you need to probably have a contract with Zillow to query the database, right? And if they
Yeah.
are providing the API, it's okay. If they don't provide the API, then you need to create your own database. So there's a difference again. Like if you want to
Okay.
build a real estate application, absolutely, I would say like get the data. The more you're building your own data set, it is going to make your business more safer than like depending on a third party to provide that. Does it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Can I just add one quick note, guys? Because I found this one particular example very effective. So I'll
Mhm.
just quickly add, real quick. Uh, for example, when I was trying to teach my son how to drive a car,
Mhm.
it took me less than 3 days,
Mhm.
right? And Tesla is trying to program FSD for last 10 years with billions of supercomputer investment and trillions and terabytes of data and on, right?
Mhm.
And the so what I tell some people, I said, listen, the reason I was able to teach my son how to drive a car in 3 days is because I didn't need to teach my son what a tree is or what a road is or a pavement is or a dog is or a person is, because he already knew that. That's the base model. Said the LLMs are the base model, and then whatever you want to do on top of it is where the rags come in, I guess. The just my tools.
Exactly. Yeah, that's called fine tuning, right? So you are very right in the way, right? So when you let's say
Yeah.
your son is like probably 17 years old or 16 years old. So you're talking about 16 years of trained data, right? And then second thing is we take some of the things for granted, right? You can see, a computer can't see. So now the spatial distance, right? It's very, it is naturally occurring to a human, right? As a human, when you see me and you see my background, it's blurred. So you have a spatial reference in your mind, but a computer doesn't have that spatial memory, right? So you need to literally feed those things into a computer. And then think about when my Elon Musk or like the Tesla's engineers are creating that car based on the size and based on the spatial distances. It would, if you look at like the newer Tesla models, it will tell you whether it's a truck, it's a Jeep, and some is they say that in China they can even find the make and model of the car. Like if you are a neighboring car, adjacent car which is coming behind from you, it will guess it, and it'll even say that how fast it go. Like for example, if you're driving it and there's a Ford Echo coming behind you in a Tesla, the probability of a Ford Echo beating a Tesla is going to be pretty high. So it will take a good decision to cross over a lane rather than when there's a Ferrari behind you, for example, right? So those kind of data
Right.
it has to be added, right? So that's exactly what is like specific knowledge base. So like I said, this basic model building this is assuming that you have an eye, you have an ear, you have multiple radar signals, right? So for example, Tesla has eyes everywhere in the sense like it is sensing how much distance, multiple cameras, and it will sense your drift. It will sense when you're crossing the lane, when your alignment is changed, right? Depending on it, then it will configure it on top of your mapping and all those things, right? So these are human natural things that we're having it, we take for granted. So the fact that the kid is able to drive at 16 is amazing, right? But at the same time, think about this one. It took them 16 years to train your son to come to this level, and right now, because of what this chat GPT, like I said, what we are doing, the number of parameters processing, the time for processing is getting shorter. So if at all your son is a AI, for example, right? Whatever would have taken like 20 years to train, today it takes like less than 4 years to train. So that's the speed at which you're going right now.
Wow. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Cool. So
Amazing. Yeah. So now it means a PhD at 4 rather than PhD at being, at 24.
yeah, you probably like AI, right? For example, like how long did it take? So I studied computer engineering, right? So I started with basic coding, right? GW basic, right? So and then I did Fortran and all those things, right? It took me probably like 6-7 years to write a C code, right? Today, without writing a single line of code, the things that I told you, right? Configuring, going to the Bing and everything, within an hour I can set up this system. I used to do Windows programming in C program, right? It used to take me like, multiple lines of code. So for example, just to have a box appear on a screen in Windows programming, it would take like at least 2 to 3 kilok lines, meaning 3,000 lines of code. Today, you can do it in a click of a button, right? So those are things we keep on advancing, right? So that's something that we need to keep in mind as well. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so let me go a little bit into the AA agents. I think that's the new thing in the AA area today, right? So what is the AA agent, right? We talked about RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation. So retrieval augmented generation is nothing but during this orchestration period, it is going here to a different site and searching real-time data and bringing it back. So that is retrieval augmentation intelligence, right? Generation, right? So instead, the difference between that and an AI agent is that only difference is AI agent is able to complete a task, right? So you give a goal and AI agent will perform a task. So I'll give you another example. Chat GPT, you can ask like, hey, what is the best task I can buy today? ChatGPT will do, like, let's say you have the specific knowledge base being built, and you are able to have direct linkage with the APIs from NASDAQ or NYSE, and you are like, probably connected to the Fidelity AI, which gives you the stock recommendation and everything. So it will tell you, hey, here is the, let's say you had to buy like, for example, like, Tesla tomorrow, or if you want to buy Apple tomorrow, it'll tell you, hey, here is Apple, and this is the position you can buy. Go and buy it at like $3. If it is like the market price is like $200. If it is less than $3, buy it. If it is more than $3, wait for it to fall down after 12 o'clock. Keep checking, keep polling. So you can. That's what it'll stop there. It'll give you information and stop there. The AA agent, the difference is that you can program it in such a way that you can connect to your stockbroker and you can say that, hey, if the stock price falls by $3 from the closing price of today, buy it. So then the AA agent will take the task. It will keep evaluating. It will know how often it can fall. It will connect if it is connected to your stockbroker, it will make the purchase for you, right? And take about as an assistant, right? AA is an assistant. let's say some of you might have your own executive assistants, some of your bosses might have executive assistants, right? So you tell them, hey, I want to schedule a call with my boss, right? I want to schedule a one-on-one, right? It'll look through your calendar and find out a spot when they are free, and then it will say, like, hey, I'll do it. The exact thing AI agent will do. Today, ChatGPT will tell that, hey, here are the slots. Your boss is available during these times. And usually, probably he will not meet you during the lunchtime, 12 to 1, but remaining times he can meet. So these are the possible slots. But you have to go and take the action. The difference between RAG and AI agent, I mean, again, I'm very making it very lame in terms that in AI, it will book that. It will book that slot and say that, hey, Muthu or Sunil, here is your slot. This is the time. And by the way, I know you are using Slack. Here is a Slack huddle link. Or if you are using Zoom, here's a Zoom link. Or it will say that, hey, I see that you want to meet him, and your boss is in the 15th floor, and let's say you are on the 18th floor. I booked a room in the 14th floor on this room, and go and take that meeting. So those are the kind of things that AI agent can do. And again, these are specific agents you need to write code for, right? So today, when a lot of these agents, again, simplification of examples, right? So if I create an AI agent for executive assistants, I need to understand the configuration of the building, how many meeting rooms are there, and I need to have access to your calendar and your boss's calendar, for example, right? So all those informations are taken as input, but the fundamental difference between RAG, if somebody asks you what is RAG and what is the agent, is that AA agent will do a task, whereas RAG will go, think, and get the data for you. So the final decision, again, it will look for you, but this AA agent is taking you to the next level where it is doing the actions. So go ahead, Sunil.
The one question, I'm sorry, the AI agents that are out there today, right? Are they considered to be the low code version of it? Meaning, can I just start using it? Or, okay, so the core question is, how much custom programming does it take to get an AI agent up and running?
So I was going to show an example, right? Let's see if I have it.
And then while you're doing it, can I
Yeah,
ask
go ahead.
one more question?
Yeah.
If you inject AI capabilities in a classical workflow, is that agentic AI?
So workflows, and then again, if you are expecting the workflow to do XYZ, right? Then it is considered a retrieval augmented. It is an agent, right? So, but if you're augmenting the data, it is either called fine tuning or RAG. Does it make sense, right? So,
right.
Yeah.
And the objective of my questioning is just very to the point where, right, to make agentic AI work for all of us in this meeting, right? Do we have to custom code it, or
No.
do we have enough? Because I come from the world of we are custom coding everything, so that's why I just want to clarify for everyone.
So Dinesh and Sunil, like I think you are talking two things. Like one is AI agent, and you are talking about agentic AI. So I think there are difference between AI agents and agentic AI. Agentic AI is a workflow that coordinate with the AI agents. So maybe I just wanted to get that
I thought
clarity.
I thought they were the same.
No.
So maybe
No, that is not same. Maybe Dinesh will talk
No,
about
go
that.
ahead, Ramki.
Yeah, that's what I know. I wanted to get the difference. The agentic AI is different from AI agents. That's what my understanding.
And that is not my understanding. So Dinesh, if you can just give us your
Yes.
2 cents. What I say is agentic AI and AI agents are the same thing, right? And Ramki believes they are different.
Yeah. So let me show this example I was talking about. So there's this site called Zapier, right? So Zapier is the one. Let me go to the homepage. But let me go to the homepage here. So what they had done is they had already integrated with multiple apps already, right? So for example, they're integrated with Slack, they're integrated with StockBits, they're integrated with multiple of these different chatbots and everything. So as Zapier kind of companies come through, they will provide specialized cases where you can where they can build additional integrations. Once these additional integrations are available, so for example, here I have Zillow Tech connecting with something, but here Zillow is providing only contact details. It doesn't give you the real estate data. So tomorrow they might provide you the housing details, housing price and everything. Then you can use Zap. But again, I'm not saying that you need to use Zapier, but it is a way for you to use it. And you think about these are the kind of components you need to build, right? So again, I was showing you a simple example here. Let me see if I can open that up. Sorry, my machine is a little slow today.
And while this is happening, just one question, right? If I want to use an AI agent today to do stock trading for me based on my guidelines, how accessible it is today? Are there websites? Are there where how accessible that use cases? I think that would be helpful to answer.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of examples, right? So again, I haven't gone through each and every of the website and agency,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course.
Think of them as service providers, right? So I'm giving there as an example, right? Here, if you look at this, the question I asked is when stock prices
I don't think we can see
Oh,
Dinesh. The screen came and okay, now
No.
can't see it. Let me see.
just came and disappeared.
Oh, is it? Okay. Let me share it here.
Yeah, I think that is one of the common and most frequently asked question, how can I spin off DIY agents?
Let me know if you can
Right,
see the
exactly.
screen, right? Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is an example, right? So here, Zapier currently doesn't have integration with any of the stockbrokers, right? But let's say in this example, I asked when the stock price crosses a 30-day moving average, can you send me an email, right? As simple as that, right? Tomorrow, I can add a task here. Let's say if they are integrated with Robinhood, right? And I guess once I get an email, process for it, and then from that price, might have a historic price. If the price of a particular stock, Tesla or something goes beyond this particular price, buy it. It'll execute that task. So in this particular case, AI, right now you're without even writing a piece of code, right? All I do is here is configuring, right? So if you click on here, it'll get me a link to the Fig Finance. I probably need to have an account there, right? And then once I get the data from my app in Fig Finance, right, API requests and everything, I would get those data, then I can filter it online. So this is a workflow creation. Does it make sense?
Right, exactly. And so the way I'm interpreting it is just for the context, and Muthu, please stop me if I'm going off track here. Uh, just for the context, what I believe will be helpful for the group is we used to have, first of all, there's a platform called low code platform like Zephyr, right? Where you can define workflows. That's step number one. Step two is we were able to define workflows in the past. Okay. Now we have more services that are AI enabled services, right? And if you start incorporating those AI enabled services into this low code platform, it becomes an agentic AI.
Yeah. So
Can
now
you say that?
yeah, that's a very good. So that's why I want to show Zapier first, right? So in this particular
Okay, fine. Yeah.
this particular thing is an agent, right? This workflow, if I complete it tomorrow, let's say, like I said, let's say I have a component that has been created by Zapier, or I'm able to build that component to log into Robinhood and make it this one.
And Dinesh, may I ask you a question just to draw the parallel? This workflow that you have illustrated here, this is what, let's say, a person who has infinite time and in today's world, let's say 10 years ago, would have followed these steps. This probably would have taken training somebody of how to go somewhere, get the data that you probably would, which place to go. And then once you get it, you download it, and then you feed to the next step. And then you're looking for whether it's confirm whether it's 30-day moving average above or below, and then do something else. So these are a human process that probably would have taken step by step in a linear world.
Yep.
Let's say 4 or 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Similar thing you could say, finding like a travel is a big thing in our place.
Yep.
The person would go look for different things and look at your schedule, their schedule, come up with whatever, and then they'll say, all right, you're staying here, you're going there, so that executive the person would make all those arrangements. Sometimes they fall through, but still, the idea is you got all that going that a human would have done, following the instructions, preferences. Maybe I don't like Radisson, maybe I like something else. So all those places they would choose, but eventually it'll come down to me just getting a folder that I know what I'm doing. Now, drawing that parallel for the same workflow you now have, could you then draw a parallel where that's coming in the deviating or incorporating the AI world into it? So I can kind of draw the analog world picture into this new pattern.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's a very good example. Let's say, you're booking a ticket today through a booking agent, right? So what do you call? You call the booking agent, you stay with them on a phone for a good 15, 20 minutes, tell how many tickets you want and everything, all this information, right? And then they go and book the tickets. So in the generative AI, I'm thinking, again, I'm not a soothsayer and I can't see look at the future, but I'm thinking let's say your booking.com or a booking site, they might provide you an AI agent. And that AI agent would have access to your information, or previous travel information, your passport and everything. And all you say is hey, book the cheapest ticket for me from DC to Delhi. Right? And then it will go look for the cheapest price, and it might ask you, but if it knows your preference, it will book it. Let's say you're looking for United flights only, and if you're looking for non doing it, right? Either at least it will make a confirmation, it will make a booking, but it will not confirm it and provide you the results, right? But again, you do not have to write it. Tomorrow, bookings.com or whatever those travel site you're going for, they will provide that AI agent. All you need to do is just like you're creating a username password, you create it. So today, even in my travel, right? So we use TripSource. TripSource, I give all the information. All I do is book the travel similar to previous one. It will take care of booking it without anyone interfering, right? So same thing, think about in the consumer market, right? So you'll have you can provide multiple criterias using your speech, and then it'll do it, right? And then let's say your family of 4, and you said only your kids are flying. Hey, I want to book tickets in such a way that the kids are flying, ensure that there is a minor ticket or whatnot, right? Let's say you are only husband or wife flying, but kids are not flying other way, right? So then you can specify all those things. So you will interact with it as if you don't even know where the AI agent is, right? This is for you to, I'm showing this to explain it to you. But internally, the fact that you're interacting with the AI agent is transparent to you. You don't even know that. So internally, it will trigger an AI agent. It will create an AI agent for you. It will go execute it just like a Lambda function. It will go execute this function, book the tickets, and give you the confirmation. Does it make sense? So that's how it is.
I can see the customization that one can say whether you want the confirmation made.
Just
wait for the confirmation before you go to the second step, or if you are okay with their decisions, they just come back and do the whole thing. Based on, it's like a human conference, like some secretaries would do the great thing, whereas the other ones you probably have to call, no, I just want to let me know after all the choices that you made, give me 3 choices and I want to pick. And then over time, a good secretary would understand, I don't even need to give him a choice, and then also you trust that person because over time you gain the trust. Whereas if it's somebody else, you're like, no, give me 3, and then I'll tell you what the next step is.
Exactly.
Is that the parallel that we're drawing here?
Absolutely. So the parallel I'm drawing is think about how you to search web. Like previously, you had to type for searching for something on Google, it will take you at least a minute. Today, you click a button on AI, you speak to it, and it will search and give it to you, right? So similar to that. So from 5 years back, today you have something you can directly interact with, and it will search for it. And then even within your AI automation, you can automate certain things within your phone, but you need to pre-build those workflows. But I don't know if you've used your iPhone, you can pre-build workflows into that one. So that's where this stage is right now. But in the future, what could happen is that there'll be multiple of these AI agents, right? So now addressing the difference between agent AIs and agentic AI, right? So this is an AI agent, right? The environment or the framework which allows me to build this is called as agentic AI. All right. So what happens is whenever you're building more and more of these features, right, the environment, the framework is learning how you are building the agent. So that is a classical difference, right? Again, those things when you are a common user, when you're interacting with the AI agent, or when you're interacting with the agentic AI, it will be transparent to you, right? So whether what kind of framework you're using today, you don't know. For example, even according to Siri, do you know what kind of framework is using, what kind of LLM model it's using? We never knew, right? So it was, but from a user perspective, they will just call it, and then that environment knows that, hey, this guy has, or this guy is using these kind of agents here. So these individual modules are actually agents. This is the simplest one, right? So that when you think about complex task an AI agent is doing today, right? It can process a medical image, for example. I can combine, I don't know if you've done a nuclear test for the cardio. The cardio nuclear test would give you hundreds of images, which are very complex. And then you would have an ECG, which will show you the graphs. Today's AI is well versed. It will look at the image and it will look the progression of your heartbeat. It will compare it to the ECG with that will match the timeline and see where you are having blockages. And if you have a murmur in your heart, it will identify it. And what kind of murmur is that? So just by looking at these things, so that requires a lot of training. So there are AI agents which is running through it, right? But it will be transparent to you. Does it make sense, Dhanwala?
No. Actually, that's a very good thing. So going back to that task that you just described would have taken years of
Exactly.
learning for being a good doctor.
Yep.
And maybe that's behind the curtain. I have thousands of doctors who are trained to look at this, and then I'm giving them real-time feedback of the ECG as it's happening with in each out of the 3,000 scans that came in, as each scan came in and the ECG metric that I can give, and then it's kind of walking it through in the entire duration of 5 minutes of those images being taken. And if I look at it, I don't know anything about it, right? I can't understand.
Exactly.
Whereas if it takes a trained human, I'm talking going back to 10 years ago, or before this AI world, that a consensus would be built. Either in India somebody would just have an intuition that a doctor will say, that's okay, or 300 doctors are coming to the same conclusion. But it's a knowledge base that a humankind has amassed over billions of years.
Yep.
And the medical science has amassed over the last 200 years, is now all condensed into this one thing. Imagine almost like a chip that you're putting into some person's brain, and all of a sudden now I'm a doctor with all those 3,000 people in my brain. Is that how this can be looked at?
Absolutely. That's how you got to look at it. So think about another example I can give you is in agriculture, right? So in agriculture, 200 years back, right? If you had to plow an acre of land, it would have taken 20 people, right? And probably depending on the area terrain you are in, whether it's dogs used to plow, cattle used to plow, camels used to plow, right? So you need to have to plow an acre of land and tilt the land and get it prepared for cultivation. It would take probably a week with multiple animals. Today, it takes 10 minutes. You run the tractor, you can tilt, you have the same two attachments to the tractor. The first one will plow it, second will tilt, the third one will show it. You can put it in sequence, the tractor will run up and down. In 10 minutes, you can sow an acre of land. We're talking about when you go to the cornfields, I don't know if you're going to any cornfields and see how they cultivate it, right? This is hundreds of acres of land. They've flattened it. There is multiple machines which move within 10 to 20 minutes. 100 acres of land would have been sowed. right? Not even plot, saw, right? So that is what technology advances does, right? So previously, what would have taken a 30 doctor, today would take a machine to understand it. And today, I think AI, because of a lot of issues in terms of data and everything, you still need a doctor to verify those evaluations.
Right.
But that's where the learning model comes into the adaptive and the feedback loop helps them, right? So every
It
time.
can be a really good second opinion doctor.
Exactly,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Now, here's the next thing while you're saying agriculture, because I can relate to that very well. There's thousands of years of knowledge that the farmers have, okay, in their brain that they couldn't tell you, but they would say, well, this is the time to put, this seed, this red soil versus this, that, and then they'll go, because the rains are a little bit whatever, and then they'll say, no, do this, right? And along this 3-4 months of crop time, they'll know by looking at the leaves or whatever, they'll say, all right, time to do this or put some fertilizer or this. So there's a whole knowledge that a good farmer has as cultivated over or incubated over time versus somebody, brand new like me, even though you look at the land, it's the same thing. You can hire a tractor, you can till, but then there's a whole 6-month cycle that still needs a very big expert of telling you what to do and matching it up with what's needed versus not. Learn the soil itself to know these are the dry spots. If it didn't, this puddle of place is no good. You can't do anything. So there's a lot of that customization that is needed also. How is AI can replace or is that an expert farmer that this AI could
Exactly. Yeah. So the foundation began ChatGPT is that how much expert data or how much of data it can consume and how you are processing that data, right? So the example I showed here, that comes into the picture when you're doing the specific knowledge base, right? So that expert knowledge, right? So I think the good example that I can give again in agriculture is that there are crop cycles, right? When you're cultivating sugarcane, after the 5-year period or 4-year period of sugarcane, you would see in villages, especially if you're from Maharashtra or in any of the north western regions, right? You would burn the entire field. And I used to think are these guys stupid? Why are they burning it? But there's a reason for it, right? So because sugarcane consumes all your nitrogen, sucks out all your nitrogen, right? And then when you plant next plant without 1 year of rejuvenating it, none of the fields because the Maharashtra places the places which grow sugarcane and cotton can grow in the same fertile land. But after sugarcane, it will suck up all the nitrogen. So that means any other crop you are putting in, it literally will die in 2 to 3 weeks. Right. So that's why they have that knowledge. So, but that knowledge has to be codified and it needs to be put into the specific knowledge base. Once it becomes part of this knowledge base, then you can start using it. Does it make sense?
Yeah. And then you probably can feed the metrics to say how much nitrogen level is
exactly
there. And then the guy will be saying, all right, you're coming closer. In a year from now, you got to burn it down now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I have a question.
You're on, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. So that definitely. Thank you. So Dinesh, it was really nice. I have we talked about really the use cases and other stuff. I am talking about something like a little bit concerned about that AI stuff. How do you how do AI agent handle the data privacy and security? Can you touch upon about that? In case if you are having any idea the data governance and data privacy, because it's booming. A lot of last year it was generative AI boom, and this year people are talking about AI agents. The things are growing quickly. So can you please talk about the data privacy and security and the governance part?
Yeah. So let me start with this one, right? So I'm also a movie producer, movie director as well, right? So I'm into movie, so I'm very well aware of I don't know if you follow the movie news. Last year there was a SAG, 2 years back, Screen Actors Guild Award went on a strike against AI, right?
Yes.
Because so thing that we need to understand from a AI perspective. Hey, somebody is speaking. Sabsashi, can you mute? Yeah, thank you. Hey, so think about this one, right? So what AI is doing even though it is saying it is generating, right? What it is doing is generating and work that is already being pre-created, right? It is generating in a new format. It is not creating anything. So AI is not. A lot of people might deny this one, but AI is when you say generative AI, it is creating something new But that new is nothing but a combination something that is found in previously, right? For example, I don't know if you had seen Dali's diagrams, right? Dali's pictures, frames. You have a melting clock. So previous to him, nobody did a melting clock. Can an AI come up with something like that without somebody prompting it? Probably not, right? So that is where the creative part comes in. So the creative part of the human is still not found out. The AA doesn't have that creative. Even you can name it as generative, you can name it as creative. The creative is not there. So the concern, the data privacy concern, is that whatever this AA is creating is previously created by someone. It is stealing that data. You can call it stealing as data, or it is it is using that for general purpose, and it is getting the data to generate new data. So are there valid data privacy concerns? Yes. Because today you can go onto a chat GPT today, you can use today, right? You can prompt it to write a novel like Stephen King. But Stephen King's written 50 or 60 novels. I read most of them, right? But I love them because each of these novels have different stories. But what Gen AI, when you ask it to write a book, it will take pieces of that information, right? Not words. It will take pieces of that information from Stephen King's novels, and it can create a horror novel by itself. But is it really creative? No. Right now, Stephen King, when he looks at the data, he will know that
it's like an Indian director making a movie out of American stories.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah.
Like 10 different movies, they'll just take a half an hour here, 10 minutes there, and then
you can do that, right? That's a good joke. Like people do.
Sholay
right?
is a great example. Sholay is a cut of close to 8 different movies. I mean, they're literally, they didn't do anything other than a Hindi setup of those things.
Okay, then what I'm going to fist fight you if you say anything against Sholay now.
I love you and I can recite every dialogue in it, so I have admiration for it. But the admiration is also how they are able to take it, right?
Yeah,
Anybody could have taken it, and they stitch it together well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the concern. So Ramki, when you ask that question, that is the privacy concern, right? So now we talked about the farmer, right? The farmer's 100 years worth of knowledge, how a sugarcane field works, once you codify it, it becomes a non-issue in an age A world, right? So same thing, right? Now Stephen King has written.
Actually, I'm going to come back to that a little bit because where I want to go is after you're done, my question would be, where is the AI? In other words, you could have quantified all this, captured knowledge of all this. If somebody really made a concerted effort, right? How did that become AI? We'll come back to that, and then you can finish your
So let me finish the privacy part of it, right?
Yeah.
So privacy is a big concern, not only for AI, but anything that is technology advanced. I told about DMA, right? So DMA has nothing to do with AI or anything, right? Even without that, how you are using private data of a person, right? So when you're creating something, that becomes creative data. So that is actually right now ethical AI. People have started talking about ethical AI, right? If you look at like a European regulation, the AI summit that JD Vance went, I think probably a couple of weeks back, right? The reason they did not sign it is because it's very regulatory. So there is a fine line between putting too much regulation and being more innovative. For innovation, sometimes you need to steal information, and that is what they call as fair use. As a creator, the creative will get offended when I say that, hey, I'm going to use your data to build AI. So he said, what is it for me? Right. So for example, you take Mozart's music for granted because it's like openly available. But like today, when a music director, somebody like John Williams or somebody is creating a music, like it's copyrighted, right? You can't use that data into Chat GPT, or it cannot be used into any of the LLM models, right? So that means that you are kind of preventing the advancement of science from learning that newer technology, newer forms of music John Williams has done, right? So he has done like probably 50 movies, but none of that information can come into a model unless otherwise he licenses it. So probably where it will end is there'll be a fine balance, right? At one point, maybe John Williams would get a huge chunk of money to sell his forms of music or his sheet music to somebody else, and then they will probably be able to codify it, and they will have exclusive rights to use it. But from a technology advancement perspective, there is something called as a fair use. For example, I'll give you another example of fair use. We have Amazon Books or any bookshop, right? Let's take any other online bookshop, right? So, or who is selling an EPUB, right? When you're signing up for an online bookshop, they will if you look through the dotted lines and the smaller letterings, it would say that one or two of the chapters can be used for fair use. What does that fair use means is that, let's say if Ramki has written a book, one or two of those chapters can be used to sell it, to market it, to advertise it, and all those kind of stuff. That is called as fair use. So at this point, we are at the place where we are using fair use data, right? So that's why some of the times I had a big discussion about hallucinations and everything, but I can cover it in a different day. But the reason that the hallucinations and all these things are happening is because of a lack of data. And the lack of data is happening because of these copyrighted things, right? From a greater perspective of humanity, we are kind of preventing the language models from learning all these new things. But if I'm a creator, right, like I said, I created like 10, 20 movies. If somebody is going to take that movie without giving me at least a penny out of it, or without giving me any kind of attribution, I feel hurt, right? So somewhere it is to be done. So there is something called as ethical AI. That's a field that is evaluating fast. Like they are going to define what means, what is the extent of ethical AI, how do you come into this privacy laws, what is fair use, all those things need to be defined, right? So like I said, right, stock markets were created like 50, 80 years ago, right? But SEC in US is coming up with new rules even like 2 weeks back.
Yep.
Right? So that regulatory thing has to evolve. Only thing is AI is moving at a faster pace and they are trying to catch up.
Yep.
Yeah. So Sunil, sorry, you want to repeat your question again?
Tarminder.
Oh, then okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So my thing was, if let's say, to hone down on where the AI comes into picture for these use cases. Okay, going back to pharma. So the evolution of machinery made possible to till the land, which took cows probably, bulls probably 3 months. Now they are able to do 10 minutes. But that's more a mechanical evolution of the machinery part of it, right? Now comes the capturing the knowledge of the farmers, thousands of farmers in the history of however, including the people who go to schools for this, for horticulture, all those. So now you want to bottle that whole information into usable information, so that it's like you having a ready-to-go expert not only has the knowledge that is reliable because the person is outside of 1,000 people bottled into one, they can also tell you by just looking at certain land, most efficient way to do certain things, because that's what you're asking them. They tell me what's the most efficient thing that I want to do. Then they'll look at it. So the reliability of their conclusion, because they would have looked at the metrics of the soil component, they would have looked at the upcoming weather. They probably know the weather in Maharashtra, how it comes up. It's not 1 or 2 or 3 elements, but now they're taking trillions of elements in making the decision, right?
Yep.
So where is AI coming into this picture? Where all of a sudden is what I'm saying. Is let's say I was able to bottle all of that into one, versus now fast forward into how is AI making all of that possible?
So if you think about this one, right? So AI or any technology, right? It's about socialization, right? Meaning that how easily you can spread that knowledge, right? So let's say your great grandfather was that farmer. He had Maharashtra, right? Let's say I am coming from Madhya Pradesh. Would your great grandfather given that information to a person who is coming from Madhya Pradesh? Probably not. Right?
Yeah, that's where
exactly. So the socialization of AI is kind of socialization or democratization, whatever you want to call it, right? So democratization in the sense that knowledge that has been built is been getting into the greater good. That's what I was talking about, the greater good of the humanity, right? So AI, what it's doing is like the LLM, Chat GPT, and I know people, a lot of people eat Helen, but Elon Musk is saying that Chat GPT should remain open source because it has to remain open sources because you're building a large language model. Tomorrow, somebody who is going to come, like I said, to build that language model from scratch, it'll take billions of dollars. So what would happen it will directly create a monopoly, right? So to answer your specific question, that is what is going to happen. You are building a knowledge base. You are building a world of network of all this knowledge, right? So again, I gave you another example, right? Google had been crawling for like what, like
So
20
let's.
decades.
I got that. I mean, you're going great direction. So where does LLM make this possible? How so it's able to tokenize
Yep.
and split the information and into thousands of possible ways that somebody can query the data into and correlate between the relations that somehow it's able to make possible, that it's because it's Maharashtra, because it's this area, because it's green soil, I mean the black soil, and the history that I learned from 50 other farmers is after 5 years you got to measure the nitrogen. It only knew you got to burn the field every 6 years. Now it has a reason behind it to know there's a nitrogen level you got to measure. So now you get into so all those, which 10, 15 years ago, even if we wanted to get into petabytes of database in Oracle and then come up with all this, versus how is that all condensed into LLM, being that it's able to regurgitate all that or put it together all that.
You're asking how is it able to put it together?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's been possible because of the speed at which you can do processing of these parameters. So previously, same amount of data probably would have, might have existed, right? So today, if you think about it, like they say that in the past 3 years, the amount of books and amount of written words that we had created, right, is almost double of what was existing 5 years back.
Right.
So knowledge is getting generated, right? So for you to process that knowledge, the speed of the machines has to increase. So that's why I think companies like NVIDIA or anyone who's working on the GPU is coming into, right? So you're talking about the way your human mind thinks. Like I give an example, like when your son is driving a car, when he's looking at it, you think that he's looking, but that is meaning that there are millions and trillions of data coming in, and your mind is able to process through it. So now you need to replicate it to an AI machine, right? So even right now, it says that you can process trillion parameters in a chat GPT, but I think it is still slow. It's still 10 to 20 times slower than a human brain, right? So that's where AI, if you're asking where AI is going to go, is that processing time has to increase. So you are reactive. Currently you are reactive. How do you get it close to your real time, right? That data is going to be there. So that for the enhancement of data is going to be in terms of speed at which you can process the data. The amount of data is important, but as more amount of data is going to getting created, the amount of time it takes to process the data has to double and triple.
So is it fair to say is the where AI would be if we didn't give the name to it? Okay, just let's say we're not going to use the word artificial intelligence at all. And this new thing, let's say there's a company that's coming up with this concept. The ability to break down a given piece of information into trillions of tokens, components, and trillions of correlation between its own broken down tokens and the other tokens that it has over time amassed, and the relationships of that, so trillion permutations of trillion, somehow it's able to come up with a coherent thought among with it, and ability for it to not only understand the question that you're asking, but also glean trillions and trillions of combinations and come back with something meaningful right away.
Yeah.
Is that what that whole thing is?
Yeah, that's all it is, right? So, and then on top of it, right, now that is all the AI part of it, right? Now, what you are trying to do is you kind of start combining technologies, right? Now you're answering the question is like what we are trying to do, right? So now you're asking to create it. So now let's say you want to create something new, right? So based on a particular model, you can create. That's what generative AI is, right? Now AI agents, you're asking it to perform some tasks, right? So you are building this body of knowledge. Then now you are trying to find applications where you can use this knowledge in a particular space, right? So is that also AI? Yeah, probably it is AI. Maybe you want to give a newer name, that's fine, right? But again, what is happening is that building up this body of knowledge, and then we are trying to find out applications in which we can do it. Today, ChatGPT, if you ask in the most layman's term, it is nothing but a sales representative or like a customer representative. It's just you are asking a question on a phone call, it is giving you the answer.
It's a glorified user interface.
Exactly, it's a glorified user interface. So now that you have so much power, now you have so much of data. Now we are coming up with applications, right? We talked about agents for stock trading. Like tomorrow, I don't know if you go to Fidelity, there are like, out of the 20,000 employees, right, 5,000 of them are portfolio managers. If I build an AI agent, the 5,000 people are gone, right? That's what SAG went on a strike, because if you have story creators, which are AI creating these stories, what is going to happen to these creative writers, right? And then we talked about farmers, we talked about doctors, like cardiologists, right? You went to you are today a doctor. If you go to a cardiologist doctor, before you meet the doctor, you meet like 4 to 5 of the nurses or technicians, right? Who will put all those plugs and everything. Tomorrow, you automate it, maybe you make it robotic. You just go and sit there. Everything is scanned, and like on the way back to your home, it will be
partially also they are working themselves out by coming up with these rigid policies and procedures that are duplicatable. And a cardiologist, cannot do anything other than what the reports are telling him to do, and years of study has told them to do. That means Dr. A is as good as Dr. B, other than a 2%, that's one person, he's allowed to bring it. Forget whether he has a talent to bring it out. So they're working themselves out. Anyway, going back to this. So if let's say, if I were to say to you, let's size up the system, okay?
Mhm.
And the use case will be, if certain use case has 20 different data elements, 50 combinations, and correlation to that is manageable,
Mhm.
I don't need AI for that. If it goes into trillions, like huge permutations of possibilities through which I need to glean certain things to come out, that's where you get the LLM involved.
Yes. So what you said was smaller one. It is called. I had it in Tamil, but today morning I did a talk on a different subject. So I can share it. So whatever you're saying, like less than a billion or trillion, right? Yeah.
Quick interruption. So the time is 9:30.
Yeah.
So just let everyone, like if we can stay on, continue for some more time, like just to make sure
Yeah.
letting you know that feel free to drop off if you're.
No, this is great. At least
Yeah, but it's
we can set up one more to kind of get the part 2 of this. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So the question was like,
So you were saying something in the morning. You had a
yeah.
talk.
So what you're talking about, like millions and trillions of lines of data, that is a large language model, right? So these GPT-4 is kind of today it can process up to 1.7 trillion parameters, right? But let's say if you have less than a billion, right? That's called as a small language model. You do not require, for example, your H800 or H100, the latest chip from NVIDIA. The chip alone costs around $40,000, right? And to build a setup on top of it, each of the machines would cost you like $1 million to $2 million, right? But that is for a large language model. You need to build so many of those machines. That's why it costs you $1 billion just to build that model. But for a small scale language model, you can have probably a good graphic processor that your kid is using. If you're using a gaming system, you can get a gaming system. You can write your own SLM model and do it. But still, it is called AI. It is still artificial intelligence, right? The scale doesn't define what artificial intelligence is. What defines artificial intelligence is its ability to understand a language, process that, tokenify it, and transcode it, and send the data. That is what defines as an AI. Does it make sense, Dhanvana?
Yeah, no, that's great.
Fantastic questions, right? Anyone has any other questions or any other area that you want to touch upon?
No, this is a good beginning for me at least. Look, I joke around these people to kind of just get the dialogues going. That I tell these people that I don't believe AI at all. It's a fake. It's a fraud, like a Bitcoin is, and that's where I start them to kind of convert me. And Ramki took a challenge to say, "No, come sit next to me. I'll show you a prototype of what this can be." And this furthers into that dialogue. So this is helpful.
No, that's a very good idea. So if you're talking about Bitcoin, right, I probably are in the same area. But if you're talking about blockchain, that's a different story, right? So that's why, like, people need to, when you look at from a hype perspective, right, there are things which are hyped, right? If you're looking at the hype perspective, right, so what Bitcoin is, what cryptocurrency is, and all those things, those are not important to me. But if you look at the blockchain as a technology, right, that is real to me. Like I said, I worked in a bank. We had implemented blockchains. Like 5 years back, I implemented blockchains. I can see the power of blockchain. So again, I can walk through the blockchains, how it can be helpful. But if you're talking about crypto, yes, the way it has been used is like, so again, a technology should not be defined by utilitarian alone, right? There is something called utilitarianism, right? You cannot purely look at everything from a utility. So today, like I said, if somebody was saying that, hey, I don't have a use case, then GPT would never been done. That LLM models would never been built. At that time, we never had a use case because humans are already thinking, why should I need artificial humans? Like you said, like, I have an expert, right? So today, like, you have consultants, right? Hire McKinsey's to, like, come and do your analysis of merger and acquisitions because they have expert knowledge. But tomorrow, that can you codify that expert knowledge and do it, right? Is it the right way? Is that foundationally done? No. Is it thinking like human? No. We think in things like human, right? For example, when you look at a car, you look at a car, right? Can you explain what is happening, what kind of neurons and what kind of chemicals are going? To an extent, but can you replicate it? Probably not. So the closest we have come to replicating that is using numerical formats, right? So the way I see it, again, I'm not saying that I'm the right one and you're wrong or somebody is right or somebody wrong, right? What I'm saying is the way you need to approach any technology solution is that don't think about utilitarian, right? You don't think about how I'm going to utilize this today, right? But there are ways in which you can use AI for a lot of things. Like there are examples like where people use AI for, like, for rudimentary stuff, right? So you do not have to use that. So go into things like,
Yeah, that's where the hype of it's AI word is everywhere, right? I mean, as you said, it has gotten into a stage of getting repulsive about it. But looking at the capability of what it can do, I can see many possibilities of, the weather is one of them, right? Whether, as much as people don't understand what the weather is, if trillions and trillions of variables can be quantified and permutations can be captured, probably the people can at one point, the machines can.
Yeah. So I know. Thanks for that. So let me conclude if people don't have any questions anymore, right? So the way I'd conclude is that, like, AI, like any other technology, is like a toolbox, right? You have the tool. Just because you have a hammer in the hand, don't keep on hitting every nail you see, right? It's a effective tool. And is it a hammer? You don't even know that, right? You don't even know that because the technology is so new. Within past 3 years, like I said, like, ChatGPT 3 was introduced, 3.5 came, 4 came. Now, like, they're talking about 5, and they're talking about, like, trillions, quadrillions parameters of data. The problem right now we have is that if you can process trillions amount of data in a second, we don't have enough data. The problem is that we have enough data. We don't have a way to quantify and qualify our data, right? So those are the things that we are working on right now. Not me, but personally, but like that's what scientific community is working on. So the way I would see is, like, again, as an introduction, we can go into other examples. I had a couple of examples created, but I can share the slides with you, Muthu, later, or we can have a session, right? But the way you say is, like, learn, understand what is happening as a tool, right? Because it might help you, it might not help you. And learning is always good. That's the way I look at it. So with that, I'll ask, but before I conclude, any other questions that people have?
No, great. This is great. And if you can, Muthu, if this can be set up a couple of more sessions like this, something can come up with it.
We'll have follow-up. I mean, with that high note, we will conclude here. I also have to go to another call. So the way I really liked when talking to Dinesh informally was, like, we will have sessions where people will be interested in coming back and learning more, or get curious so that they can learn something on their own. So it's not like, we don't want to give the entire syllabus poured through a Zoom session, right? So instead, get answers to some of the burning questions and then get more curious and pursue the journey, right? So this is more about people getting interested in this topic rather than coming up with some common solutions rather than become another classroom session. Okay. I like this format. I don't know about you guys. Like, I think Dharmen
It's,
also.
it's amazing
Yeah.
initiative, Muthu. I really appreciate, Muthu, that you took that initiative. At least, so only 2 or 3 people were talking. I know that there are a lot of brilliant people that we are not, right, but they are listening and they will come up with a, new form of questions or something it'd be useful for each and everyone. It's a really great initiative. I appreciate Muthu, and I really thank and to Dinesh. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So
You're
maybe
welcome.
next session, I know people have questions. Like if you have any questions, send it to Muthu, or you can find me on the internet, send it to me. Maybe we can just do a quick question, right? I think one of the questions that Dhanwar you asked is how can you use AI today, right? Can you use for building up your resume? Can you can you correct your kids' essay? Most of you guys have kids going to write SAT or already did SATs, and essays is part of it. How can you do that? How can you use for your job search? How can you use it for productivity things, right? So some of the things that we can do, again, mostly utilitarian. So ask those questions. Again, I'm not an expert by any chance, right? So I happen to have work in that area. I probably know a line more than you, right? But I'm learning from your experience, right? So ask me questions, send me those questions. I think that will help me to also develop, and then we'll have a sharing session.
Ignite